Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, the Education Coordinator for Marlene's Market and Deli. Tonight's special guest that we have with us, and is always an honor, is a Bach Flower Remedy practitioner and teacher, Carl Anderson. Thank you so much, Carl, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Anytime. So you have a wonderful topic tonight on what are Bach Flower Remedies.
Yeah. So we're going to show a little video that gives a little background, so it's a little change of pace in case some of you have seen other lectures that I've given, where we kind of do a whirlwind tour of all of the remedies. So here we're going to see a little video that goes over Dr. Bach's history and the history of the remedies. It's about a 20-minute video, and then we'll go on from there. Okay. So I'm going to let me know if this is displaying properly. Okay, so are you seeing this full screen now?
Part of it is a little cut off.
What's that?
Oh, there we go. Now I can see it.
Is it full screen?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, all right.
A chance discovery of a flower near a mountain spring in Wales would begin a journey for one of the most imaginative thinkers of our time, Edward Bach, a passionate and devoted physician who turned his back on orthodox medicine and began researching the healing power that nature provides for treating disease. Dr. Bach was a respected bacteriologist, pathologist, and London physician in the early years of the 20th century. According to his theories, emotions are linked to physical disorders. His flower remedies interact with whatever negative emotions a person is experiencing at that moment to bring those emotions back to the positive. Like many pioneers whose discoveries advanced the fields of science, the life of Dr. Bach was not without controversy. And like other innovators who make unique discoveries, some thought of him as an eccentric. But his intuition about the power of nature eventually culminated in the discovery of 38 flower remedies that would change the way people approached the art of healing. Edward Bach was born on the 24th of September 1886 in the village of Moseley, located just on the outskirts of the city of Birmingham, England. Throughout his childhood, Bach often visited the countryside. He was an intuitive boy, very sensitive to his surroundings, and enjoyed walking among the trees, birds, and wild flowers. But in stark contrast to the natural beauty of the open fields was the city of Birmingham. This manufacturing city is considered the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. Upon leaving school, Bach went to work at his father's brass foundry. He had suppressed his childhood dreams of becoming a doctor, as he didn't feel he could ask his parents to stand the expense of his medical training. But with its constant noise and seemingly claustrophobic conditions, the work environment at the foundry did not suit the young Bach. He did, however, find a very different inspiration from this industrial setting. Edward Bach was a keen observer of emotions and saw how illness took its toll on the workers. Fear of illness was as great a problem as illness itself, because a sick man could not work nor afford the expense of large medical bills, and the cures offered did little more than mask the symptoms. Finally, Bach told his father of his desire to become a doctor. With his family's blessing, he left the foundry to pursue his passion for alleviating human suffering and went to Birmingham University to study medicine. For 6 years, Edward Bach voraciously consumed his education, first at the Red Brick University of Birmingham and later at University College Hospital in London, where he qualified as a physician in 1912 and joined the Royal College of Surgeons. A year later, he obtained the further degrees of Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery, and in 1914 added a diploma in public health from Cambridge. During his tenure at University College Hospital, he researched vaccine therapy in the bacteriological department. Bach discovered that certain intestinal bacteria were closely connected with chronic disease and its cure. He developed vaccines from these bacteria that were found to purify the intestinal tract. While encouraged by the results of many vaccines, he was distressed over the use of injection, given the pain caused by use of the syringe needle. By the time the First World War broke out, Bach was already highly regarded as a physician. The hospitals in England overflowed with soldiers returning from the front line. Some men had horrific injuries, while others were suffering from the effects of gas poisoning, amputations and shell shock, what we today call post-traumatic stress. Although Bach's ill health restricted his ability for military service, he was placed in charge of 400 wartime hospital beds. While spending every spare moment working at his research into bowel disease. During his time spent with the injured soldiers, he began noticing that some, with the same conditions as others, fared much better in the healing process, though he wasn't certain as to why. Unfortunately, in 1917, his efforts came to an abrupt halt as he collapsed at work with a massive hemorrhage and was rushed into hospital. Doctors operated on him, removing a cancer already in an advanced stage. He was given only 3 months to live. But for the tenacious Dr. Bach, there was too much work left to be done, as he felt he had only scratched the surface with his research. Though still very weak and just able to walk, he got back to his laboratory with an intense desire to do all he could in the short amount of time he had. With new purpose, he became stronger, defying all odds and amazing his colleagues with his renewed health. To say Bach was a workaholic is somewhat of an understatement. His window at the hospital was known as the light that never goes out because of the long hours he kept. The following year, Dr. Bach was given unofficial permission to inoculate troops in England, with the result that thousands of lives were saved. This only brought more patients to his door. He ran his private practice where the elite of the profession were located, on Harley Street in London. Because of his immunology research, he was looked upon as a genius with an even bigger future in front of him. And yet, though a successful physician in the middle of the city, Bach's yearning to live closer to nature was one that never left him. He was known to walk to a small park in the city and just sit and look and listen to nature in the midst of the bustling city. Ironically, that same love also caused him great pain, as a city park was no match for the pastoral countryside he had enjoyed as a child. In March 1919, Edward Bach was appointed pathologist and bacteriologist at the London Homeopathic Hospital. Exposed for the first time to the principles of homeopathy, Bach set out to delve deeper into the subject. Of particular interest to him was the Organon, the seminal text on the subject written by the father of homeopathy, Samuel Hahnemann. Though Hahnemann's discoveries had been made over a century earlier, Bach was fascinated that Hahnemann had, too, seen a connection between intestinal toxemia and chronic disease. He decided to prepare the bacteria using homeopathic methods to see if those preparations would work as well as the vaccines. This was a great success, and the new remedies became known as the 7 Bach nosodes. Hahnemann's theory was to treat the whole person rather than the symptoms of disease alone, and he stressed the importance of the mental and emotional state of the person being treated. Dr. Bach felt a kinship to Hahnemann, as he had always been interested in the individual needs of his patients as people believing that orthodox medicine concentrated too hard on diseases and not enough on the whole person. He reveled in the idea that Hahnemann's ideas might lead him to the safer and more natural way of treating the cause of disease that he had dreamed of as a child. In his consulting rooms, he began trying to apply Hahnemann's insights by categorizing his patients and searching for links between their personalities and the bacterial nosodes that they needed. He found he could often predict the nosodes he would need to use on a patient just by looking at the personality type. In 1922, Dr. Bach decided to give up his post at the London Homeopathic Hospital in order to concentrate on his research, although he continued to receive and treat patients at his London consulting rooms. He opened a large laboratory in Park Crescent, and it was there that Edward Bach met radiographer Nora Weeks. She too found the prospect of healing by nature fascinating, and she was a firm believer in the directions his research was taking. Later she would become his assistant, although by all accounts the relationship between the two remained purely platonic. Bach had long taken exception to using bacteria, the product of disease, as a cure for disease. He wanted to find a natural, pure equivalent for the 7 bacterial nosodes he had previously discovered, so he began to experiment with plants that might replicate their effects. Bach's transformation from traditional physician to holistic healer was well underway. By the standards of his day, when doctors were expected to be rather reserved and distant, Edward Bach was known as an unconventional man. It wasn't uncommon for him to join in sing-songs in the pub and stand drinks for the locals. He would sit in the bar and watch how people behaved. This, in particular, always being an endless source of fascination for him. Despite this sociable side to his nature, formal occasions made him a reluctant guest. At one particular dinner party, in a large banqueting hall, he began examining the faces, gestures and mannerisms of the other guests as a way of curing his boredom. He considered how he might group these personalities and emotional types, and he wondered if those with similar types of personalities and emotions would suffer the same diseases. In a flash, his intuition told him that all these people could suffer from every kind of disease, but the way they reacted to the disease could be grouped together. He realized that the answer to treating disease was not to focus solely on the chronic disease alone, but instead to find a treatment for the negative moods and emotions that were responsible for the breakdown in health in the first place. With the help of these insights, he categorized several emotional states of mind and could see how more would be needed. He was determined to devote the rest of his life to this new system of medicine that he was sure nature could provide. It was the search for these new, simpler and more natural medicines that took Dr. Bach to the Welsh countryside. In Wales in 1928, he found Impatiens glandulifera and Mimulus guttatus growing wild and prepared remedies from them using homeopathic methods. Dr. Bach began using the new flower-based remedies on his patients. He prescribed them based on the patient's personality and achieved immediate and remarkable success. Next, he added clematis to his collection. These 3 remedies were so successful that by the following year's end, he had given up using any other medications while continuing to look for more remedy plants to prepare. In 1930, Bach did what other physicians considered the unthinkable. He turned his back on orthodox medicine, abandoning his extremely lucrative London practice to devote himself entirely to the search for new remedies from the pure and simple herbs of the field. He asked Nora Weeks to accompany him as his assistant. Dr. Bach continued to strip out unnecessary ideas and theories from his practice, including the old laboratory-based methods of making remedies. Instead, he devised 2 new ways of preparing the flowers. The earliest of these was the sun method. Dr. Bach placed fresh flower heads in a bowl and stood them in unbroken sunlight so that the plant energy would be infused into the water. A few years later, when he had settled at Mount Vernon, he found a second method, the boiling method, which he used for 18 of the remedies. In this method, he would collect the flower parts and boil them in water for half an hour before leaving them to cool. To make the medicines, Dr. Bach mixed the energized water with equal parts of brandy, which was chosen as a preservative. The resulting liquids he called the mother tincture. He then made stock bottle dilutions by adding 2 drops of the mother tincture to 30 milliliters of brandy. From 1930 to 1934, Dr. Bach and Nora travelled over scattered corners of England and Wales, preparing and testing remedies from many plants. He experimented using these preparations with his patients. Over time, he settled on 19 remedies. Most of the remedies were made from flowers, with the exception of rock water, which was potentized in 1933, using water from a forgotten spring. In a couple of instances, olive and vine, he wrote abroad and asked friends in Switzerland and Italy to prepare the remedies to his instructions so he could try them out on his patients. One of his favourite rural destinations was a seaside town on the east coast of England called Cromer. He enjoyed observing the dynamics between the relaxed tourists and the locals going about their daily lives. The observations that Bach made in this tranquil setting reinforced his theories regarding different personality types. While everyone in the town faced similar day-to-day challenges, people's reactions to any given situation were very individualized. It was while living in Cromer that Dr. Bach discovered many of the early remedies: agrimony, chicory, vervain, centaury, cerato, scleranthus, and oak. And it was also in this town where a nautical emergency put Bach's work to the test. On December 14, 1933, a ferocious storm was brewing out at sea. Lifeboats had been dispatched to rescue 2 fishermen from the sinking barge, the Sepoy. For 6 hours, the rescue boats tried to launch, but the seas proved too rough. Finally, a lifeboat perched on the bow of the barge and pulled in one fisherman lashed onto the mast, who was foaming at the mouth, delirious and not expected to live. In fact, his rescuers felt it was a certain death. As the fisherman was brought to shore, Dr. Bach insisted on trying to save the man's life and moistened the fisherman's lips with a combination of remedies that he referred to as rescue remedy. As the story goes, within moments of Bach's efforts, the man sat up, asked for a cigarette, and was then taken to the local hospital. By this point in Bach's life, the flower remedies were already gaining fame through word of mouth. He had published several articles and books on the healing powers and efficacy of the remedies, yet the medical profession was slow to accept his ideas of healing. He also advertised his remedies in newspapers, much to the disapproval of the General Medical Council. For the next 4 years, threats were made to strike his name from the medical register. Finally, he retaliated by penning a letter to the council, stating that he no longer considered himself a physician, but a herbalist. And in a later letter, he rescinded his association with orthodox medicine, never to hear from the General Medical Council again. After years of travelling, Dr. Bach and his assistant Nora felt it was time to establish a centre where they could continue making their remedies. They settled into a rented Victorian cottage called Mount Vernon in the sleepy village of Sotwell, Oxfordshire. Their dear friend, Victor Bullen, a builder from Cromer, joined them later to help them in their work. Bach was delighted to find that almost all of the remedy plants grew within a mile or 2 of this new home. With his savings from his London practice days now well spent, there was little money left for furnishings. He collected wood and made his own furniture, which still resides in Mount Vernon today. And though money was sparse, Dr. Bach would not charge for his services or remedies. He felt that health was the right of every individual, and his remedies were simply a natural extension of healing. Ironically, it was the patients themselves who felt uncomfortable about the free consultations. Many wouldn't return for a second visit because they felt they were taking advantage of his good nature. So Dr. Bach put a charge on the treatment to make people feel that they weren't just taking, but giving something in return. The remedies were becoming known far and wide. Bach was acquainted with the Nelson family, owners of the oldest homeopathic pharmacy in Europe, based in London. He would travel to London to deliver his mother tinctures there, and to 2 other pharmacies. Bach also continued to treat people who came to see him at Mount Vernon. It was also during this time that he himself suffered negative states of mind for which he didn't yet have a remedy. He discovered the final 19 remedies by actually suffering himself and finding a plant that would treat him. The dream of Dr. Edward Bach to create a system using nature as a catalyst to achieve good health had come to fruition. And most importantly to Bach, the new system of remedies was safe, effective, and above all else, simple to use. Dr. Bach made one final dramatic statement. He burned almost all the notes pertaining to his case studies and discoveries. He saw the completed system as a gift from nature. He wanted people to see and judge it as it was, without being distracted by theory and speculation. No science, no knowledge is necessary, he wrote, and they who will obtain the greatest benefit from this God-sent gift will be those who keep it pure as it is, free from science, free from theories, for everything in nature is simple. Dr. Bach treated many people successfully with the remedies. He planned a lecture tour in September 1936, but the strain of a lifetime of work had begun to take its toll, and he was only able to give one lecture before falling gravely ill for the second time in his life. At the age of 50, having fulfilled his dreams, this exceptional man died peacefully in his sleep and was laid to rest in the village churchyard, a short walk from Mount Vernon. Etched on his gravestone is the inscription, "Behold, I'm alive for evermore," and through his remedies he is. Dr. Bach left his work in the hands of his friends Nora Weeks and Victor Bullen. In 1958, they raised money to buy Mount Vernon, now better known as the home of the Bach Centre, and placed it in the hands of a trust. After Nora's death in 1978, the trust was cared for by her partners, John Ramsell and Nicky Murray, and then by John and his daughter, Judy Ramsell Howard, following Nicky's retirement. In 1989, John founded a charitable trust, into which the ownership of Mount Vernon was transferred, so as to protect the house and garden for all time. Today, the Bach Centre is at the heart of a worldwide education program. Practitioners in every corner of the world register here and promise to work using the original methods laid down by Dr. Bach himself. So while it is now a worldwide phenomenon, the system remains as Dr. Bach left it so many years ago, simple and pure, just like the flowers that grow wild in the garden. And for all involved, the simplicity and purity of this method of healing remains paramount. As Dr. Bach wrote so many years ago, this is nature's way and is right.
Okay. Let's see. How do we do this now? Stop sharing. All right. Any questions about that? Was that informative for people, hopefully?
I really enjoyed hearing about his whole journey and what brought him to develop those.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting perspective. It gives you an idea of his philosophy and how everything is connected in our health. And so much of it is based on our emotions. Our emotions, when we get stuck in emotions, there are no bad emotions. Sadness is not bad. Hatred is not bad. But anything we get stuck in is bad. When we get stuck in love, it becomes warped. It's no longer love. It becomes possessive. It becomes jealous, all these sorts of twisted things, right? But clearly, if we get stuck in hatred or resentment, they're debilitating too. But even love, so a lot of, there are no bad emotions. We're supposed to feel everything, right? But we're not supposed to be stuck in any emotion. That's the key. So.
That definitely makes a lot of sense in, honoring that emotion, but also being able to let it go.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And these Bach Flower Remedies help.
Yes, they do. Do we want to do a little presentation, a quick overview of the remedies themselves, or do you want to go to questions and answers?
Yeah, that would be great. And then we could do a little Q&A portion at the end.
I might try to make this, there we go. So, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I am Carl Anderson. That's me. BFRP stands for Bach Foundation Registered Practitioner, and BFRAP, Bach Foundation Registered Animal Practitioner. So if you are looking for somebody, try to go to somebody who is registered through the Bach Center and really understands the remedies properly. There are a lot of people who are using the remedies and even teaching classes who aren't really following Dr. Bach's principles. And there's a lot of misinformation out there. So you have to kind of be careful. Where you go to. Let's go here. So the remedies, you already got a quick synopsis of Dr. Bach's philosophy and how they work by balancing emotions. Dr. Bach was a very prominent physician and a researcher. He was considered, all of these degrees actually are sort of like the equivalent of 3 PhDs or MD degrees today, or specializations. And so the degree in public health from Cambridge is basically something that somebody like Anthony Fauci or the Surgeon General of the United States would have. It's a large, really understanding large scale disease control and this sort of thing. So he was really, really highly educated. So there are 38 different remedies, but when rescue remedy is sort of the 39th remedy. So I refer to it as the 39th because it counts as one remedy. They are simple, they balance emotions, they can't overcorrect. They're safe for everyone of all ages, including infants and including pets. There's no question about the connection between our emotions and our health. That's sort of well accepted now, but 100 years ago, that was very, very controversial. So he was really a pioneer. And the other thing that's interesting is he was studying the flora of the human gut and looking at the correlation between gut bacteria and disease, which was, again, way ahead of his time, because only in the last 10 years or so have medical doctors been doing that recently. Naturopaths have been doing it for the last 30 or 40 years, but medical doctors really only in the last 10 years or so. So he was way, way ahead of his time. So what we know of as disease is the terminal stage of much deeper disorder. The prevention and cure of disease can be found by discovering the wrong within ourselves. In other words, something that is not right. He's not trying to blame the patient, but he's trying to say that there's something that's not working in our lives, and then make change so we actually have the power to make the change to correct it. And oftentimes this is living somebody else's life. So if you became a doctor or a lawyer because that's what your parents wanted you to be, but you really wanted to become a poet or a musician, that creates a discord between your higher power, your soul, who you were meant to be, and the life you're living. So that discord creates an energetic imbalance that creates all kinds of things like anxiety, depression, you name it. And aside from ulcers, heart attacks, bypass surgery, drug and alcohol problems, broken families, a little hard work never hurt anybody. So we have a real problem in this country, or have had in the last several generations, a real problem of workaholics, right? So we tend to be very productive and overproductive, really, and immerse ourselves in our work to the detriment of our health. And it's important to be aware of ourselves, aware of our bodies and our limitations, and our souls, and feed our soul, not just our physical bodies. So the remedies are energetic or vibrational medicine. They are not herbs, even though they are from plants. They're the flowers of plants. There are no chemical constituents of the flower left in the remedies. It's just the energy. And they are not aromatherapy. A lot of people think, oh, they're flowers, they're fragrances. No, there's no fragrance to them. If you open a stock bottle at Marlene's, they smell like brandy. That's all you'll smell. They all smell basically the same. They smell like brandy. So they are not aromatherapy. They are not herbal concoctions. They are tinctures that are made from flowers, but they do not contain any chemical constituents. Whereas herbs do contain chemical constituents of the plant. So here we just have the energy, so it's closer to homeopathy in that sense, similar to Arsenica album or belladonna, which those are toxic, right? But the homeopathic remedies of belladonna and Arsenica album do not contain any, not one molecule of belladonna or arsenic. It's just the energetic footprint. But each of these 39 remedies restores a specific negative emotional state. And we can personalize blends up to 7 remedies. In reality, you can go to 8. But with 7 remedies, there are over 19 million combinations. When you use 8 remedies, which is fine, there are actually 62.5 million combinations you can make. They're simple and effective. They're simple from one standpoint, but the devil's in the details. People, it's just like saying, well, Spanish is an easy language. Yeah, it might seem easier than French or Mandarin to start with, but when you try to master something, it becomes difficult, right? So there's more complexity to it than what's on the surface. On the surface, it's very simple, but it gets more interesting later on when you try to figure out subtle differences between remedies. That's why we offer classes in the remedies. There are no side effects. You can't overdose. They're not habit forming, so you don't build up a tolerance to them. No interaction with other drugs or treatments, and they're completely safe. They're quite amazing. So they can only bring you back to center. So if you take a remedy that you don't need, you're already in the center. That remedy will do nothing. So that's why they can do no harm. They can only do good. The remedies, as they mentioned in there, are made either using the sun method, which is kind of like making sun tea, and the other, Sharon raised a hand. The boiling method is for the woodier flowers, but that creates a potentized water. Then they mix that with brandy as a preservative. That becomes a mother tincture, and then 2 drops of that go into each stock bottle, and the rest of that is brandy. Rescue remedy, for the rest of you who are familiar, it's fairly common. That's the one remedy that most people have heard of, if they've only heard of one. And it is basically a stress formula, and it is the #1 natural stress relief product in the world. It's the bestseller around the world. It contains rock rose for terror, Star of Bethlehem for shock and trauma and grief, impatience for a sense of urgency that we often feel when we're in some sort of a stressful situation. We just want to speed through it, get it over with. We may feel like we're losing control, losing composure. Cherry plum helps with that. And then clematis helps you stay grounded so that you don't dissociate. Because sometimes people almost even feel like they're looking at themselves from the outside in. And that's clematis will keep you tethered so that you're in the moment, so that you can make better judgments and deal with the situation. So rescue remedy is great for any kind of personal crisis, public speaking, doctor's visits, vet visits for animals, people who have any kind of phobia or panic attacks, that type of thing, air traffic, or air travel, interviews. Rescue is fantastic for all of those sorts of things. And it also is available in a cream form, which is great for hot spots on animals, skin disorders for people like psoriasis and eczema. Seborrhea can be very good for those. The remedies fall into 7 different categories, and they are fear, uncertainty, insufficient interest in present circumstances. So just like Eckhart Tolle talked about the power of now, being in the present, being here. That's what this insufficient interest in present circumstances is. It's for people who are, yes, you have a question?
Yes, we have Sharon on the line, and she had a couple of questions.
Sure. Shoot.
Hi.
Hi, Sharon.
I was wondering, Mr. Anderson, how long have you been involved with the remedies? And
Since 1999, 23 years this year. And yeah, 23 years. I've been working with them. I took my first level 1 class then, and I've been a practitioner for a number of years. An animal practitioner, which is a separate path. I got that in 2015. So 7 years as an animal practitioner as well.
yeah, what did you do before that?
What did I do to get those?
No, what did you do before that?
Before that? Well, before and concurrently, I was an engineer. And I gave up engineering in 2017, so 5 years ago.
Oh,
I was doing both, one during a day job, and then evenings and weekends I was doing body work and Bach Flower Remedies.
I was introduced to one of the first classes in 1980
Mhm.
in California, and Bach Flower Remedies. And then in 92,
Mhm.
when was it? 92. I went to England, so I went to his home.
Mhm.
It was like a pilgrimage because they literally changed my life.
Wonderful. Good.
Yeah, they're that
Did you-
powerful.
So did you go on? Did you become a BFRP?
I did a little bit, and I'm one of the people that would stray from the very strict literature.
Okay, so you're not on the registry then.
No.
Okay, cool. But they are amazing. They are really amazing. Yeah. So one of the things that a lot of people will stray from is that Dr. Bach. Okay, another thing people may have heard in the video, they refer to him as Dr. Bach. He was actually Welsh, not German descent. So the Welsh pronunciation is Bach. I generally refer to the remedies as the Bach Flower Remedies because most people have heard of them as the Bach Flower Remedies.
Oh, thank you. That really clears it up. Thank
When
you.
I refer to him now, I'm switching over, gradually transitioning to referring to him as Dr. Edward Bach out of respect. But I still refer to the remedies themselves as the Bach Flower Remedies. So that's what this connect is. But at any rate, there are Dr. Bach believed in the consultation process, and the whole process is very carefully developed to help people have awareness of what the issues are and awareness of what they're taking and why. So there are people who will work with the remedies and they will douse, they'll use a pendulum, or they'll just energetically feel, say, I think you need this. And it's all very magical, right? Or they'll muscle test, kinesiology, using muscle testing of some form, and use that to validate the remedies. And Dr. Bach did not believe in those methods. He was very intuitive himself. And he was also into astrology personally, but he didn't, and he actually explored a connection between the remedies and certain signs and the remedies, but he found that was some of the stuff that he burned because he didn't want people, so he, and that's that bold statement at the end there where he purged all of his notes and everything. He didn't want people second guessing things that he had already kind of gotten rid of. Those were the scaffolding for the system. You know, just like scaffolding on a building, you build a scaffolding, then once it's built, you tear it down, right? They were necessary. All those notes and all the dead end paths that he went down helped him get to where he ended up being. But then he wanted to get rid of all that because he figured it would be a distraction. People would go back and say, well, maybe he was onto something here. So he purged all that stuff. But at any rate, he does not want us to basically give somebody a mysterious bottle full of remedies that they don't really know what they are and make it seem like we have the power. He still wants to empower the client to make the decision about what they're taking and why. So even if we feel as though the client would benefit from a certain remedy, if they're not willing to face that they need that or willing to do it, they don't get it, okay? So we never give somebody something against their will. And so one of the things that I don't know if that was why you veered from the traditional path, but the prescribed path is through the consultation method and does not allow us to use other methods of selection, like kinesiology or mixing in astrology or using a pendulum or something like that, dowsing. Okay.
Yeah. No, I couldn't. The interview system just doesn't work for my mind. There's just too many complications and too many layers, and it's true. Some people are not good at expressing their self, expressing their feelings, and telling you how they feel. So I went the other way.
Did you take level 3? Because the level 3 BIAP course is really designed. It's extremely well designed. It's very well done. That teaches you how to become more comfortable with the consultation process and all the different steps. So it's really good. It's a very thorough course. It's better than what the Bach Center itself developed. So there are only two organizations who can lead to the path of Bach Foundation registered practitioner or animal practitioner. And one of those is taught at the Bach Center or through their distance learning program. The other was created actually for outside of England. That's the Bach International Education Program. The Bach Center started it, but then they passed it on to Nelson's. Nelson's is the company who actually does the bottling of the remedies, and they make the remedies. And I personally think that the BIAP courses are superior to the Bach Centers. They did a very thorough job they worked with experts in training. It's really, really a wonderful program. So if you took the level 3 course, you would learn to become a better practitioner, a better questioner, and learn to become comfortable and confident in yourself and your abilities. And then, so I tell some people, I've had a lot of students. I teach these classes. And I actually have a level 1 introductory for animals and people coming up in July. That one's going to be virtual. But a lot of my clients have other skills. One is an astrologer, professional astrologer, and really wanted to link those. But she's actually come to realize that by learning the consultation method, she understands now the connection, how important it is to actually do that consultation method and become comfortable and confident in it. So you don't actually need to, I know that you might be more comfortable, like using something that you're familiar with already, like a muscle test, and you may be very skilled at that. But once you actually learn the skills, it is a better way to go. You get more lasting change when people actually connect with what their situation is, connect the remedy with their situation, see why they need that. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it does.
Right. Cool. So these are the 7 categories. We're going to just go quickly over them. I'll just let you look at these here. The fear category has these 5 remedies in it. And there is a brief, if you go to my website or the Bach Center's website, you'll find these the descriptions, the simple one line description of the remedy. in level 2, we get into much more fine tuning where, well, what's the difference between terror and fear, right? So we discuss that sort of thing in level 2. And in level 3, it's, like I said, primarily practitioner training, the consultation process. These are the remedies in the uncertainty category. So there are three remedies that are, well, a lot of people have trouble differentiating between gentian and gorse, and sometimes between gorse and mustard. And those are the sorts of things we really get into in the level 2 course. And here's mustard, which is in a different category. So this is, and we get into the rationales and the importance of the categories in level 2, the level 2 course as well. So why is mustard in one category and gorse and gentian are in another? And neither of these is in the despondency and despair category, right? So this is a quick run. You can see we could spend a lot of time going over these, but it's almost too much information unless you have specific questions. I would like to allow more time for specific questions. So these are the kind of general issues that most people come seeking help with: stress, anxiety, depression, PTSD, grief, hatred, jealousy, racing thoughts, fears and phobias, unfulfilled ambitions, and a few other. I've written several blog articles, and they're listed on my website as well. There's a pull down, there's a menu item saying blog articles. One of those is on sexual dysfunction, and that I think has had the most hits of all. So for men and women, it's really shocking to me. There's another one on PTSD, which is also pretty well read. Another one that's extremely well read is eating disorders. So remedies can help you with these specific things, but there's not one remedy or one set of remedies that's prepackaged for eating disorders. We customize them to you, what's motivating you to do that certain behavior. For addiction, likewise, that's another article that has a lot of hits. Different people feel compelled to addiction for different reasons. So there's not one standard formula. And that's something that is, again, forbidden from the Bach Center. We're not allowed to do that. If we're found to do that, we would lose our BFRP status. So this is for an impatient tooth fairy. I don't care if your tooth is loose, I have a deadline. Let's do this, get it done. So some of the remedies work really well with animals too. And some of the common things that people bring their animals in for are aggression, separation anxiety, elimination problems, peeing outside the litter box, peeing outside of the box, possessiveness, over grooming. The possessiveness can also be food possessive or aggression around food or toys. Skin disorders, hot spots are a big one for cats and dogs, more so for dogs, and for cats, over eating disorders for cats and dogs as well, and horses, OCD and stereotypies, and fears and phobias.
I recently got my roommate's dog the Rescue Remedies drops. She tends to get a little obsessed with her paw and will just lick and lick and lick. And within 10 to 15 minutes of, administering that to her, she calms down and just is able to just be chill and
good.
Yeah,
that's great testimonial, and it's true. They are quite amazing. One other remedy that might be really helpful with things like that, like over grooming or like licking a paw so that it's irritated, and or chewing on the cells in the spot or things like that. Crabapple is very, very effective also, in addition to rescue remedy. So that does not, that formula is not prepackaged at all. So, but if you mix the two in a treatment bottle and gave her the rescue plus crabapple, I think you'd even see even better improvement. So,
Oh, thank you.
sure. So using the remedies, they can be used for any emergency situation. So all the remedies can be used for an emergency situation. It's not just rescue remedy. We tend to think of rescue remedy as the thing for emergencies. But depending upon what your emergency is, like if you all of a sudden are just feeling like really impatient and irritable, and that could be an emergency on its own, and that would be impatience, impatience. You could take that by itself. That happens to be one of the ingredients in rescue remedy, so you could take rescue remedy because it does contain that. But there are other things that I used an example once before about guilt. One time I said a joke to somebody, and I thought it backfired. And this was over. Actually, that was over like Facebook Messenger or something like that. So I didn't see the response, but all of a sudden it was like dead silence. So I thought that I'd insulted my cousin, and I thought that the joke, was like kind of like, oh, like he didn't take that well. So I was feeling really guilty. I was feeling horrible. So in that case, the emergency was guilt. So the remedy for guilt is pine. So you can take any remedy. You need to take the appropriate remedy, but any remedy can be appropriate for a specific emergency depending upon what the emergency is. So in that case, rescue remedy wouldn't have helped. It was actually just, I really needed pine. But you can take them for long-term situations, of course, and life patterns and personality traits. And when you're doing that, it's best to put them in a treatment bottle. So we talk about peeling the layers. We're kind of like layers of an onion. All these layers of emotion. And as we peel away layers, we get to see deeper. All of a sudden, the outer 7 layers were embedded before more deeply. Now they're more visible. So all of a sudden you can feel different things that you didn't even know were there. As you peel the onion, you're getting deeper and deeper. So how do you learn more about the remedies? Okay, there are classes, like I mentioned. There's a level 1, a level 2, excuse me. You can use the remedies yourself. Here we go. Here's the level 1 is really geared for working with people. Level 1, pets and their people, is 50% covering animals, 50% covering people. And it goes over the basics of animal behavior so that you understand how to use the remedies with animals. I will be teaching a level 1 people and pets next month in July, starting July 6th, 13th, 20th, and 27th. It'll be 4 half days from like 1 to 4:30 Pacific time on 4 consecutive Wednesdays. It'll be virtual. Then level 2 is the advanced workshop to really understand the fine points between remedies that seem to be close. Level 3 is a practitioner training. I teach all of these classes, and I have not set the dates for the fall, but I plan to be teaching a regular level 1 and a level 2, and I will be offering a level 3 within the next year. I don't know I have a feeling it'll probably be in the spring now, because there are fewer people who take level 2 than level 1, and fewer people who take level 3 than level 2, right? So not everyone who not everyone moves on. So I want to make sure that I have enough people so that I'm not just teaching to 1 or 2 people in a level 3. Level 1 and level 2 are normally 2-day courses all day, 9 to 5 for 2 days. Like I said, this level 1 pets and people that I'm doing now virtually, we don't want to be online for 2 8-hour days. It's just too grueling. So it's 4 3.5-hour days. The recommended reading, the only books, there are lots of books written on the remedy. I think that most of them are really extraneous and not helpful and a waste of money, to be perfectly honest. If you can find these 3 books, these are great. I don't know if you carry them. I haven't checked. I know at one point we talked about trying to get these. I don't know if you have them, but Heal Thyself was written by Dr. Edward Batch that talks about his philosophy. Then the 12 Healers is his description of each of the 39 remedies. And then there's another book that was released later, in the 70s, I believe it first came out or so, the 38 Flower Remedies, that's very good. It's written, Dr. Edward Batch and Judy Howard co-wrote it. These 3 books are very good. And if you take the classes, you get copies of the 38 Remedies in level 1, and the level 2, you get the other 2. You get hard copies of them. So this is my contact info. My website is my name with the letters BFRP afterwards, carlandersonbfrp.com. My email is just carlandersonbfrp@gmail.com. My phone number is right there. The Bach Center's website is simply that, www.bachcenter.com, but center spelled the British spelling, B-A-C-E-N-T-R-E. Okay. So the Bach Center has a good website now. That it was really cumbersome before. There's still almost too much information on there, I think. I like my website a little bit better because it's more succinct. You can get lost trying to find things on the Bach Center's website because there's just so much on there. But I've kept mine fairly short. There's one tab that I would recommend ignoring. If you go to my website, ignore the tab that says Learn More. That was put on by a company that I hired to do SEO, and quite frankly, it's just garbage. But everything else on my website, I think, is really straightforward, and it's easier to find things. Like you can find a description of each of the 39 remedies. You can see photos of each of them if you'd like. Then I give a description about the consultation process for people and one for the consultational process for animals. Then there are the blog articles, how to take the remedies, remedies to help cope with the coronavirus outbreak, right? Dealing with heartbreak, dealing with depression, etc. So there are different blog articles that could be very handy and helpful. Yes, questions, Sharon?
Hi. The 38 Bach Flower Remedies by Dr. Batch and Judy?
Judy Howard, yes.
Judy Howard. Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's, I got a copy right here. Let me show what it looks like. So here, where is it? This is what it looks like. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. It's seems like it's out of focus. Is that in focus now? Yeah. It's a good book. This is very, very well. I think that those 3 are the only 3 ones that I would recommend. I have at least one whole shelf, probably 2 shelves full of Bach books, because I wanted to learn more, and quite frankly, most of them are not worth the paper they're printed on. And I think that going back to Dr. Bach's descriptions in the 12 Healers, and then the descriptions in this 38 Flower Remedies book are the best. And sometimes I will reread them and sometimes see all of a sudden get a new insight just with a different point in time, right? So I still can learn from them. And so I think they're the best. What other questions are on here? Okay.
Oh.
Any other questions, Shay? Okay. Okay.
Okay, I've got one.
Shoot.
I've noticed that Nelson, who you say produces them,
Mm-hmm.
they wrote up different categories,
Yeah.
in the display.
So I have to say, personally, I don't personally like those. That is a marketing thing. It's important that you know the other remedies. The other titles. So the 7 groups: the fear, despondency, and despair, over concern for the welfare of others. Each one, those are the ones that the titles that Dr. Batch gave them. I personally don't understand the other ones, like what is it, like stand your ground or something like that, or they've got these strange things. If those speak to you, it's fine for you to use it if they're helpful to you. But I think I always tell people, like in the level 1 and level 2 classes in particular, and certainly in level 3, you do need to know them you need to know the names of the groups that Dr. Bach gave, put them in. If those other things help you identify with the remedies, great. But if they don't, like for me, they confuse me. So I don't even use those at all. Sometimes I can't even correlate those titles to what the titles are that Dr. Bach gave.
Mm-hmm. And Nelson is probably the one who made up the formula for the sleep remedy.
They did, yes. I have to say, I do like the Rescue Sleep line, I think is amazing. So Rescue Sleep by itself, the liquid, is Rescue Remedy plus white chestnut. So it just shuts off the chatter of an active mind. So if you're tired, but your mind is keeping you awake, Rescue Sleep just quiets the mind and you fall right to sleep. There's also Rescue Sleep in the form of gummies that has the same combination, Rescue Remedy plus white chestnut, but it also has melatonin. And it is amazing. So that does have a chemical in it, melatonin. So it's not something, again, you don't want to take those every night. It would certainly be better than taking Ambien every night. I know people do that, or Xanax or something like that. But still, the idea is if you take melatonin too often, your body will stop producing it. But it is really amazing. It really works. I keep a bottle of that in my bedstand. There's also the Rescue Sleep. Well, the spray is the same as, basically just the same as the liquid. There's a Rescue Plus line that is also very good. Rescue Plus pastilles that are in like a tube. Do I have any here? I don't think I do right now. They're in a tube. I think they're 10 in a tube. They have Rescue Remedy plus B5 and B12. And they put that together because when we're super stressed, our bodies burn through B5 and B12. And it also gives you a little energy. The B12 will kind of give you a little boost. So I like that. I would just tell people don't take that before bed because you will have the reverse. The B12 could give you energy. Then there's also a Rescue Gum that has L-theanine in it, which is very relaxing. L-theanine is an ingredient in black tea. And part of the reason black tea doesn't give you the caffeine rush that coffee does is that it has theobromine, what's the other one? There's another compound, and then there's L-theanine. And L-theanine keeps you calm. So that's an interesting formula as well. Those are very well done. I have to say, I like those. The only one I don't particularly like is the Rescue Fatigue. Rescue Fatigue has olive in it, and people will probably think that it's going to give you energy, but it won't. What it does is it makes you get sound sleep so that you become rested. But if somebody's grabbing that because they need to stay up all night, it could have the wrong, it could backfire because it could actually make you crash so that you sleep and are fully rested. But whenever we borrow from Peter to pay Paul, the payback is really, is not very good. Like taking, if you're exhausted and you take a Red Bull, it'll get you through the night, but then later you're going to be super exhausted. So the Rescue Fatigue doesn't do that to you, but it won't give you the boost you need if you're trying to get through the night, right? And the next night it might give you you might be better off, but the first night you might end up crashing. Does that make sense?
Yes. Well, Olive says it right in the thing. It says it's for exhaustion.
Yes, it is.
Which is painful. Exhaustion is physically painful.
Absolutely.
So if you take it, then you can get good rest. That's exactly what it says.
Right. And that's why so that is in the insufficient interest in present circumstances category. That's again the title that Dr. Bach gave. The insufficient interest, you can't really be interested in life if you're exhausted, you're fatigued. And fatigue can sometimes look a lot like depression or apathy. So wild rose, olive, and gorse, it can be hard to differentiate sometimes. You don't know if somebody's just really exhausted or if they are just feeling really blasé or if they're just mildly depressed. So, and that's why we practitioners exist also, is because we are trained in the methods to help ask the right questions, to identify the right remedies. It was designed to be a self-help system, but sometimes clients need a little more help from the outside. You're the expert in your own self and your own body and your own soul, and what's going on in your life. But we practitioners, we BFRPs, are the experts in the remedies and can help connect you with what is appropriate for you. No matter how you design a questionnaire or write one little blurb, in several words to describe each remedy, there's room for interpretation or misinterpretation too, right? So, for example, there's a remedy for procrastination. The buzzword for procrastination is just linked with hornbeam. But hornbeam is for people who are lacking the motivation to start. And they're just kind of like, not now. Like the thought of doing it is more work than actually doing it. If you actually were to sit down and do the task, it would actually, you'd be fine, right? But getting started is the hard part. But there are other reasons why people can procrastinate. If they think that they are doomed to fail, they don't have confidence in themselves, they expect that they just fail and they're trying to save embarrassment, that's large. And another one that I encounter quite a bit is rock water. A lot of people are perfectionists, and they know they can do it perfectly if they're well rested and if they're in the right frame of mind. But if they're not in that state where they feel like they can give it their all and do it perfectly, they don't even want to do it. But that's not a matter of confidence. It's a matter of perfectionism. So that's rock water. So there are different reasons why people might, procrastinate. And likewise, so at any rate, no matter how you, even with the best of intentions and wording, there's room for misinterpreting. And sometimes people read through the questionnaire and they say, oh my God, I need all of these, So
Yes.
But at any rate, that's why we exist. And the consultation process is sort of like a one-on-one tutorial too, because we go over the remedy and explain why we think that this is the remedy that you need. And we check to see, make sure that it resonates with you, and you have ultimate say in what you take. Any other questions here? Who never tried before? Oh yeah, you will love Bach. Is quite amazing, Shay. And they're gentle. They work really gently. And I've worked with people who were thought they were going crazy. One woman actually was thinking, like saying that 2 hours, 3 hours earlier, before a consultation, she was thinking about checking herself into a mental hospital. I've worked with people who have eating disorders, PTSD, addiction, all sorts of addiction, whether it's gambling, food, addiction to porn. I've worked with people who are hoarders also, and the remedies can really help because you have to try to get to the root of what it is, what's going on emotionally. And they actually work on the cause, so not the symptoms. What remedies are good for calming? Well, clearly, rescue remedy is a good choice. It's an easy thing. It depends on what's agitating you too. Do you want to speak up? Or procrastination? No, procrastination is not wild oat. Wild oat, unless it might seem like procrastination. If somebody is wild oat is for life path. Like you're uncertain of your life path. You don't know what you want to do with your life, or you're looking for purpose, looking for meaning in your life. And this happens to a lot of people once they've made their money and they've sold their soul to the company for so many years, then they want to do something that feeds their soul, right? And then it's like, now what do I do now with the time I have remaining? That's seriously wild oat. So somebody might look like they're procrastinating because like they're not doing anything because they don't know the direction. If that's the case, then wild oat could help them. But that's not really procrastination. It's just that it's an uncertainty. They don't have certainty about what to pursue, right? Any other questions? Feel free to speak up.
Don't be shy, folks. Feel free to unmute yourselves. Oh,
Did I answer your question, Shay?
I believe
Yeah,
so.
I had someone suggest to me it was good for studying to help you focus.
They can be, depending.
Wild oat?
No, not wild
No.
oat. Definitely not. That I would say no, definitely not.
Okay.
There are two remedies that I tend to associate with focus. So it depends on how you're losing focus.
Mm.
In some cases, people describe, especially now with COVID, there are a lot of people who have like brain fog from COVID. But you could have brain fog, or your mind is sort of like pea soup, where you're just kind of, it's like working sluggishly. It's like it's not firing on all cylinders. That would be, or if they're daydreaming, tend to just kind of drifting off and daydreaming, that would be clematis. So that can help for focus in those circumstances. The other one is the more energetic state where people's minds is racing and they're bouncing around, they're easily distracted. They're just looking for any excuse. Like they glance up, it's like, oh shoot, I haven't haven't scrubbed those windows today, or I've got to feed the cat, or whatever, and looking for excuses. Your mind is kind of racing, and you're bouncing off the satellites. That would be white chestnut because it quiets the mind. So that rescue sleep, the regular plain rescue sleep formula, would be perfect for that because it just quiets. If you're stressed also, then you'd want the rescue, but the white chestnut in there is what will quiet the mind. So, so the regular rescue sleep doesn't make you tired; it just quiets the mind. So if you are tired, it'll allow you to fall asleep. Your mind won't keep you awake.
I'll have to look into that one. Thank you.
Yeah. So those are the two main things for focus. There might be other things specific circumstances. But those are the two that generally focus falls under. And like, quite frankly, most kids who are on Adderall, it's like a shame how many people are popping pills constantly in this country. Everything from, hormone replacement to, Adderall and, antidepressants. And those do not resolve the issue. They mask it. These actually make you recognize that there's something wrong in my life, something's not working, and I need to make a change. So, it might be stuck in a bad relationship, or in a job that I really don't like, or I don't like where I live, or whatever. But rather than just masking it or pretending it doesn't exist, it'll help you face whatever it is that you need to change and make the change, and that resolves the problem. So
That's beautiful. It's like the essence of the plants help regulate our homeostasis.
yeah, and they in effect lead us down our own personal path of spiritual growth without even having to think of it that way, like, oh, I think I'll do some spiritual growth today. They lead you to become in alignment with your higher power, your soul, so that your life, I was stuck in a job that I didn't particularly like. It didn't feed my soul. And every day I felt like I was losing a little more of it, giving it away to the CEO of the big bad company. And, I just said enough. And they helped me say, leave, just leave,
Yeah.
So.
Shay in the chat said that she gets overwhelmed in social settings. Okay. And when you first spoke several years ago at Marlene's about rescue remedies, I started using it for my own anxiety and stage fright, and it truly helps. Yeah.
So that social anxiety could be, again, a couple things. It could be rescue could really help. and maybe that rescue sleep again with the white chestnut, just to quiet the mind too, in case you're being self-conscious and just always thinking about, your mind is overworking. Our minds play games with us. People sometimes confuse themselves, their soul, with their mind. The mind loves to play games and loves drama and loves to bring up things, embarrassing situations that we should, from 20 years ago, telling us you should be ashamed of this. It's like nobody else remembered that. Why are you tormenting with this, right? And it's not me, it's not you, it's everybody. Our minds do play games with it. Our minds are not our friends. It can be a useful tool, but just like a cell phone, which is a useful tool, keep it in check. Mine is off right now, right? Okay, I don't want distractions, it's off. I can shut it off, and likewise our minds, we can shut them off. So mindfulness, meditation, all of that sort of thing is great, but for a lot of us, it's hard to do that. With the white chestnut helps quiet the mind, just so it'll help you get there. But another thing that in social anxiety, sometimes if it feels sort of like sensory overload, some people get very overwhelmed by things, and overwhelm is elm. It's the last three letters of overwhelm, right? But elm can help with this idea of sensory overload. Oh, there's too much. I don't know how to process it. I can't, and then kind of shut down. Or if you have too much work, and normally you could do all of the work, it's just there's way too much of it. There's no way you can get it done. Sometimes people are again, overloaded, and then they don't know where to begin. It's like, where do I even start? And they can kind of shut down and get stuck. So elm might be appropriate also in that situation. Yeah, so it might be, but the rescue remedy could also be very helpful for that social anxiety. Yeah, any other questions?
I just used that area code, I think, the other day. So are you in Baltimore?
No, I'm actually in Seattle. My phone number is a San Francisco number.
Oh.
But I left there in 2005. So I'm on Capitol Hill in Seattle.
Oh, okay. Is it true that they also grow the remedies in New York State?
They might, but I don't buy. So actually, I have two of them in my yard, but I don't make remedies from them. I have honeysuckle, and it looks like it's the same variety that's used by the Batch Center. I also have a form of gentian, but it's not the same variety. Then I also, in addition, what was the third one I just noticed? Oh, olive. I have olive that is actually about to bloom. It's completely covered. It's on my balcony, covered in buds. And they're about to, it's just amazing. It's really funny. I want to take a photo once it actually comes in full bloom. So I have basically three of the remedies that I grow here, but I don't make the remedies myself. Part of the reason, I know people who really want to, I want to grow the plants because that is my connection. I'm into horticulture too. So my connection is just knowing that I have the plant, but I don't want to make the remedies. I've known people who do, and that's fine. Personally, as a practitioner working with clients too, I don't want to worry about something that might be contaminated. I have to be careful with soundness I only use the remedies that they sell at Marlene's, the actual ones with Dr. Bach's signature. There are a lot of companies in Europe making the original Bach Flower Remedies. The only ones, the true original ones, they couldn't trademark them because they were so common. And there are at least 50 companies in England alone that make the original, and they can call them the original Bach Flower Remedies because it's they're so prevalent. It's like Kleenex here. Everyone says, give me a Kleenex, which is a brand name, right? So the only thing that they could trademark was his signature. So those are the ones that I use, and those are the ones that are made by Nelson's. And most of them are actually picked right on the grounds of Mount Vernon, Dr. Bach's home. I know that they actually do, what is it? Not mass spectroscopy. They do chromatography. They use chromatography to identify the species, make sure the potency and all that sort of thing. And they follow the proper pharmaceutical controls. They follow, they're all made in batches that are labeled on the remedies, and everything's sterile, in very, very hygienic circumstances. So I don't want to interfere with that, and I only use theirs. FES makes a series that they call the European Flower Remedies that are the same as the Bach Flower Remedies. Agrimony, aspen, beech, centauri, serato, etc., down through willow. So they make the same individual 38 remedies, and they make a combination blend that they call the crisis formula, which is basically similar to rescue remedy. But like I said, personally, I'll only use the ones made by Nelson's. As far as I know, the others work, but I don't know that they have the same controls. So, any other questions?
Any more questions, folks?
Nobody?
Well, we're going to say goodbye to our Facebook Live friends here, but we thank you so much for tuning in. For those of you tuned in here live on Facebook, and definitely check out Carl's website for more information.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you all for attending. I appreciate it.